Hi, welcome to Research Quest Live. We're so excited to have you here today. Thank you for joining us. We're looking forward to another wonderful class. And if you are visiting us again, you were here with us yesterday. We're going to be continuing our work. If you're joining us today for the first time, we will be doing a quick review to get you up to speed. All right, couple of things. So again, welcome to Research Quest Live. This program is put together by the Natural History Museum of Utah, and we are offering classes every day, Monday through Friday at 9:30 Mountain Daylight Time. And then we are having a live Q&A session with an expert at 11 a.m. So we hope that you will join us for both of these programs daily. We are also going to have classes available ongoing for weeks to come. So if you want to learn more about the class schedule and future classes, you can visit the Natural History Museum of Utah's website. All right, a note for teachers. This program does address both science standards and language arts standards, both here in Utah as well as nationally. If you would like to know more about how this program addresses standards and builds critical thinking skills, you can visit researchquest.org to learn more. All right, also at researchquest.org, you will see there is a teacher support tab, and you can visit the teacher support tab to find resources that include instructional guides, rubrics for assessment, lots of other materials to enhance this program and delivery in the classroom, both in a traditional setting as well as distance learning. All right, also this program, we are asking students to ask questions, analyze and interpret data, construct explanations to phenomenon-based questions. All right, so like I said, today, right now we're going to be starting class. It will be an hour. After class, we'll have some study hall time, which just means that the instructor will continue to be available if you have questions. So you can ask me questions while we do some independent work time. And then we will have our guest speaker at 11. All right, a few things to note today. We will be using a research assistant notebook, which I will show you how to access that. I'll show you how to log into the website and show you which steps we're going to be working on. We're going to be finishing up step 7, continuing through the rest of the investigation we're working on. And then at the end, if you have feedback for us on how we can make things better, or if you would like to receive a certificate of completion for completing today's class, you can fill out our feedback form and we will send you a certificate of completion. All right, today we are doing part 2. How is energy transfer and matter cycling affected in a changing system? That's our class we're working on today. And at 11 a.m., we will be having a conversation with Christy Bills. She is the Entomology and Malacology Collections Manager. So as we do our class today, if you think of questions for Christy Bills about insects or the museum's entomology collection or anything like that, you can submit those questions at any time. Let me go ahead and share my screen, just to show you. All right, so this is probably what you see on your screen. Now over here I have the viewer where my video is playing. And if it is in the way at any point today, you can minimize the viewer just like that. Okay. Also in the viewer, you can see we have the Research Assistant Notebook link right here. So it says download and print today's Research Assistant Notebook. If you can print it, great. If you do not have that option, that's just fine. Also, if you have any issue opening it up, so I have it here. I have already clicked on that link and opened up the Research Assistant Notebook. I'm still viewing it in my internet browser. So if you want to download it or save it and print it, you can do that right there. Okay, here is also in the viewer the Ask a Question button. And I would love to know who is joining us for class today. If you want to go ahead and click there and put your name. So my name is Tracy. I live in Utah. I'm just going to write, hi, I'm in class. Okay, we would love to know who you are and where you're viewing this program from, where you live. You don't have to include an email address. The email address, just so you know, if at some point today you have a question that you would like a response to, like I'm having an issue with the video playing, then you can ask your parent, you can include an email address there and we can send you a response. Otherwise, you don't need to include that. Okay, let's see here. I think there was one other thing I was going to mention here. Oh yeah, with the viewer. So the viewer, my video, you can make it full screen if you like. You can adjust the volume, you can pause it. So you are in control of my video. If you ever need more time at any point today, or you need to take a break, you can just pause the video. Okay, and then when you get back and you're ready to go again, you can just press play. All right, I'm going to go ahead and type in the login code, which is RQLIVE. Select submit. And we are working on change in the Uinta Mountains, normal or not. I'm going to select get started. We are working on investigation 3. How is energy transfer and matter cycling affected in a changing ecosystem? So that's the green box. I'm going to click on that picture. And like I said, we are going to continue step 7 and then work through step 12 today. Okay, so a quick refresher for those of you that might be joining us today for the first time. So we have been looking at how energy transfers and how matter cycles in an ecosystem. So yesterday we watched a video from the museum, which Dr. Mitch introduced the phenomenon we're investigating. And he discussed that an ecosystem is like a machine and it has many parts and all the parts are working together. And he said that in just like a machine, we have a source of energy where we get our energy from, which would be the sun and the environment. And then in our system, we have many living things that play different roles. So for example, we have large animals and small animals that play, and different living things that play different roles. So we have producers. Producers include things like plants. You grab a couple of my plants. Okay. So for example, the producers, their diet would be the sun, nutrients from the soil, water, and air. So the environment and sunlight. Then we have consumers. Consumers eat the producers. So let me find a consumer that, oh, I can't, let's see. Oh, here we go. So here I have an aphid. Aphid eats plant juice. So we have that as a primary consumer. We have things that eat the primary consumers, which are the secondary consumers. So here I have a red-naped sapsucker, and we have some animals at the top of this group. So tertiary consumers, and they eat from various levels, from all the levels. So you can see the bear eats both berries as well as insects, as well as fish and small mammals. Decomposers are the part of the system that help break down things that were living things and return them into nutrients and resources that can be reused by producers. So I have here this porcini mushroom. The porcini mushroom helps break down trees, for example, and return it into nutrients that can be reused by producers. Okay, then just to catch you up, so we were talking about how ecosystems have this energy flow. It goes from producers to consumers to decomposers and then back to producers again. And we continued our work thinking about creating a model and showing that flow of energy. And here we got to see what Dr. Mitch is. So he's the scientist at the museum that we're working with. And he showed us his model. So in his model, you can see energy goes from the sun to the producers. And then we have all different levels of consumers that are eating the producers. We have primary consumers that are being eaten by secondary consumers and tertiary. And then we have secondary consumers that are being eaten by tertiary consumers. And then we have the decomposers that are they're basically decomposing at all levels. They eat these different, I guess, living things that are no longer living. All right, so let's just quickly watch this video again together, and then we'll finish up step 7.
Produce, eat, and be eaten. That's the name of the game for the parts of this ecosystem. Even an apex predator, like the bear, gets dissolved into nutrients and minerals by bugs, bacteria, and fungus. Once the bear dies, of course. For producers, like the lodgepole pine, well, they make their own food. They pluck carbon from the air, hydrogen from the water. With those atoms, they build their own branches, needles, and seeds. Sunlight shining on their needles fuels that whole plucking and building process. Everything else either gobbles up the plant's hard work and gets energy, or they get energy by eating the animals that ate the plants. But when one thing eats another, does all the energy get transferred from the prey to the predator? When the coyote eats the ground squirrel, does the coyote get all the energy that had been eaten earlier by the squirrel? What do you think? It would make sense. Just look at that plump, juicy squirrel. All those calories from plants stored up as meat and bones for the coyote to eat. But wait, the squirrel's got to use some of that fuel from the grasses and nuts for herself. Look at how she's scurrying, breathing, digging, even pooping. All that stuff requires energy. So she's using a lot of the energy she ate for herself to survive. It's used up before the coyote eats her. Same goes for this blade of grass. When it converts sunlight into energy, it uses some of that energy to do the carbon and hydrogen plucking and growing. So that energy is no longer there for the squirrel to eat by the time she finds it. In fact, a lot of the energy here gets used up before the next creature or decomposer can eat it. This used up energy is called energy loss. It's a big, big factor in the way all ecosystems work. How much energy do you think is lost in the cycle? Knowing this will help you figure out what the forest will need in order to replace its broken lodgepole pine part. Check out the simulator on your device. Use it to figure out how much energy is passed along when a predator eats a prey. You'll also see how much energy is lost. I think you'll be surprised by what you find.
Okay, so here on this step, let's see if I can make my video screen any bigger. On this step, we got to see the video where Dr. Mitch has been providing us sort of a big picture overview of the levels I was just describing and how the energy transfers in the system. And so here on this step, which we started yesterday, it says, how does energy flow in nature? Use the simulator to look more closely at how energy flows in an ecosystem. Select 2 trophic levels and observe how energy flows from one level to the other. Sometimes the path will be direct, like between producers and consumers, and other times you will see energy move through some of the other factors before it gets to its destination. So hopefully you had some time yesterday to play around with this. If you did not, you can pause my video now if you want to try manipulating the factors and seeing what the result is here in the simulator. Also, as we're observing the simulator, okay, I can see there are two different colors of arrows. The purple arrows show matter. Okay, so remember, matter is not lost in the system. It cycles from one living thing to another. Energy transfer, however, is different. So we can also see there's energy transfer from one thing to another thing, but some of the energy is lost. So that's what I want you to pay attention to. So let's go ahead and watch this one together. So I selected producer. So I have the producer, which is the grass here, and I have the consumer, which is this rabbit. Okay, so let's go ahead and watch it together. Okay, now if I was going to select consumer to consumer, let's see what happens. All right, so in our Research Assistant notebook, you were working independently yesterday. And this is a step that I asked you to go ahead and do on your own. It's page 2. Right here it says analyze. We're analyzing step 7. Select 2 factors to draw and label a scene that tells your own story of how energy and matter cycle in an ecosystem. Now, I wasn't able to draw on this because I didn't print it out. So hopefully you got yours printed out and you were able to draw pictures. But I decided to write a poem. So my poem is about producers and consumers. And I just wrote a short poem based on some of the things that I've observed and also some made up things that I've not observed. So I have dandelions devoured by grasshoppers, gobbled up by an owl, tulips chomped on by snails, snatched up by a squirrel, catmint flowers nipped by bees and swallowed by a bear. So that's kind of my take on old mother that swallowed a fly type song. Okay. So hopefully you had a chance to work on that step, and maybe in your feedback today, you can share with me some of the stories that you wrote or the models that you created. You can share some info about that. All right, nice work. We are going to continue. We are going to move on to section 3, interpret. Okay, so again, this is what we're working on today. We're really working on steps 8 through 12. So we are on the interpret step. And I'm going to go ahead and select that. We're going to watch this video together. If you would like to watch the video on your own, of course, you can pause my video, watch it on your screen as well. And I'm going to be making the video full screen. If you want to change your viewer so that your video is full screen as well, you can always expand it right here. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and watch this video. It says, in this video, you'll hear about how energy flow can be disrupted if even a single population of organisms is removed from an ecosystem. Listen for information that can help you develop an explanation for why this happens.
Just 10%. That's all the energy consumers, including us, get from the food we eat. Surprising, isn't it? Most of the energy is used up by the plants and animals before they wind up on our plates. So every source and scrap of energy is vital here. And now that one of the main producers in this ecosystem, the lodgepole pine, is dying at high rates, how would the other parts be affected? There are so many of them, producers, consumers, and decomposers, like this porcini. Mushrooms like this are entirely dependent on their host for carbon. They're not plants, so they can't use sunlight. Instead, they grow on the surface of a host, then release enzymes that turn the host cells into vital nutrients before soaking them up. If the lodgepole pine trees they're living on die, the porcinis eventually die too. As lodgepole pines disappear, the energy they gave to the porcinis and all the other species disappears too. Until now, all those decomposers, consumers, and producers relied on that energy from the pines. If the pines are in danger, how will the other organisms be affected? To answer this question, I've created a model of the energy sources in the forest based on what exists today and another for what is predicted for the future. Tap on the different levels in the model, you'll see how lodgepole pine deaths might affect the energy that's available to other organisms now and in the future. Can this forest fix itself? In the next video, I'll share my thoughts and we'll compare our ideas.
Okay, excellent. So we are going to move on to step 9. I'm going to go ahead and push next. It says, how does energy flow change when lodgepole pines continue to die off? If the lodgepole pines are a broken part of this ecosystem, what will happen to energy flow if their populations continue to rapidly decline or are totally eliminated? Will whatever organisms take their place be able to keep up with the production of energy needed to support everyone else in the ecosystem? Dr. Mitch has created a model that shows what he predicts will take over the physical space that lodgepole pines have been occupying as the lodgepole pine continues to decline in this ecosystem. Use this model to compare energy flow now and in the possible future. Does anything change? Why or why not? Now, we saw Dr. Mitch, he sort of shared with us how to use this model. So let's go ahead and read from the top. It says, what happens to energy flow? Does energy flow change with lodgepole pines die off? Use these trophic models below to evaluate how energy flow may be affected in the future. Click on a level for each model to compare possible changes. Okay, so this one is labeled current. This is labeled the future. So if I select on producers, I can see the producers now and what they predict is producers in the future. Okay, so I noticed some big changes here. So right now, lodgepole pines make up half of the producers, right? I can see that. Then we have a couple other big groups. Red is Douglas fir, yellow is aspen. Now in the future, if we do not have lodgepole pines, we have a prediction here that aspen will make up the vast majority, okay? So what I would like you to do is, why don't you go ahead and take a minute, click on these various trophic levels and make some observations about what you notice as far as which species are represented and what percentage that they were represented at, okay? So I'll go ahead and study it on my side. I would like you to explore on your side. Okay, I would love for you to continue working. And oh, for some reason my video is not. My video is not working very well just then. I just wanted to say good morning to some of the students that are joining us. I know we have a full class that are tuning in today. Just wanted to say shout out to Danica from Washington. We have Emmerich from Utah. Isla from Massachusetts. Justice from North Carolina. Sequoia from California. And Elena, who's here in Utah. So thanks for joining us again. I recognize some of those names, and I'm going to go ahead and let's head back to the models. And I'm going to give you a little more time to explore the models and see what you notice. Okay, as you're working, I would love for you to go ahead and start on your research assistant notebook. We are on page 3 at the top. It says interpret, discuss with your partner or on your own how the decline of lodgepole pine trees may impact the energy flow between the trophic levels. Complete the model below using the evidence you've collected. Okay, so as you observe each level, so as you observe producers, consumers, and composers, I want you to think about how the decline of the lodgepole pines might affect producers. Okay, so based on what I'm looking at right here, I want you to go ahead and write out what you observe based on the model that's going to, how things are going to change for the producers. Okay, so that's going to help us just record our notes and our thinking, and will also help us respond to the question here on the bottom, which we will do last. Okay, so go ahead and be working on your research assistant notebook, page 3 at the top. Okay, so I have finished on my research assistant notebook, the interpret section for step 9. And I'm going to go ahead and begin answering this question here. If you need more time, of course, you can pause my video and keep working and then press play when you're ready. So I have here, what changed between the current and future trophic model? Choose all that apply. Okay, I'm going to read through these and then I would like to invite you to answer it on your own. So we have the organisms in each model are mostly the same. The organisms in each model are mostly different. Some organisms populations grew while others shrunk. Most organisms populations grew, most organisms populations shrunk. Energy stopped flowing through the ecosystem. Energy continued flowing through the ecosystem. It is impossible to tell whether energy continued flowing through the ecosystem from this model. Okay, so why don't you go ahead and respond to that? Okay, we received a great question from Sequoia in California. Sequoia is wondering about the tertiary level and noticed that the consumers on this level did not experience any observable changes here and is wondering why that might be. Well, when we think about sustaining a population of animals, of course, they need to have their needs met in terms of their diet, what they eat, their habitat, and all of those kinds of factors. Now, when we look at the diet of some of these animals on the tertiary level, so like the black bear, for example, usually at this level, we have organisms that are called generalists. And so that means they have a very diverse diet, which is a mix of primary consumers, secondary consumers, tertiary consumers. Okay, so they can eat a variety of foods. Now, because they are generalists and they have such a diverse diet that if one element in that diet changes, they are likely going to consume more of other things to sustain their population. So although we have changes in the producers and we can see a change in the function of the ecosystem, and there are ripple effects in terms of the consumers, the bigger impacts are going to be for the consumers that have specialized diets. So you maybe even noticed on the primary or secondary, very specific consumers that have disappeared. Or maybe you saw with the decomposers. I noticed there was also a decomposer that disappeared. So it was specialized in terms of its relationship with one of the producers, the lodgepole pines. And so when the lodgepole pines disappeared, some of these other consumers and decomposers disappeared. Okay, so it's going to have a much bigger impact on the consumers that are specialized. But excellent question. Okay, hopefully you had a second to go ahead and answer this and choose all that apply. I'm going to go ahead and click submit. Now it says, what did you think? Here's what you recorded about changes to this montane ecosystem. Use these statements to construct an explanation for how energy flow will or won't change if lodgepole pine populations continue to decline. Now you can type your response here, or if you'd like, you can work in your research assistant notebook. I'm going to go ahead and be working here, and I want to write my explanation. All right, so why don't you go ahead and take a moment to be working on your explanation. I just got one question about that last step. They wanted to clarify, what does it mean to select more than one? So you can see I selected, I just clicked on multiple answers that I agreed with. Okay, so this is not A, B, C, D, where you can only choose one. You can choose many of these statements, whichever statements you think are true. So it's more of like a true or false. So if you would think it's true and you agree with it, then you can select that. If you don't agree with that, then don't select it, okay? Now I'm working on my explanation. Hopefully you are working on your explanation. And if you have other questions, of course, you can go ahead and ask us now at the Ask a Question button. Okay, so I am done writing my explanation. If you need more time to work, of course, you can pause the video. I decided to download and continue. So I selected download. So I have here, it has saved my work in that form. And I'm going to go ahead and select continue. And I'm now going to work on steps 11 and 12. Okay. So it says it's time to share your findings. Use these tips to help you prepare to share with your peers. Okay, tip number 1, use models. Use the model you made to describe how energy flows through the system. Then use the model of the future system to describe some of the changes that can be expected and how that will or will not affect the flow of energy. Tip 2, check your reasoning. Does your presentation describe how evidence flows from the sun to the different trophic levels? Does it explain why this is evidence for how the flow of energy in the system will or will not change in the future? And tip 3, practice. Practice presenting your ideas before you have time to share with a larger group. If you do this in front of your peers, family, or friends, ask for feedback about anything that doesn't make sense. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and move on to step 12, and I would like us to watch this video together. Also, if I look at my research assistant notebook, I have here my communicate step. Okay, so what I would like you to do says reflect and communicate. Select an organism and write a diary entry or draw a comic strip that shows a day in the life of your organism. In that day, you could show how they took in matter and energy and how they expended it. As part of this comic, you could write who benefits from their matter or energy. Okay, so we're going to work on this step in just a minute. Let's go ahead and watch the video on step 12 together, and then we can continue to work in our research assistant notebook and on the communicate step. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and expand this. And let's go ahead and watch.
Energy and matter. The lodgepole pines create a lot of both for this forest. Will energy sources emerge here to replace the energy once provided by the pines? The short answer is probably yes. When it comes to continuing the energy cycle, ecosystems are resilient. This machine will fix itself. The beetle outbreak attacks mature lodgepole trees, not the younger pines. There are gaps in the tree canopy where the old pines once stood. Now, young ones will grow into those gaps and take their place. Also, we might see many of those gaps filled by aspen trees or spruce trees, like these. So, matter and energy will remain about the same. But there are a few catches. It takes a long time for an ecosystem to fix itself. For young trees to fully replace the pines, it could take at least 80 years. Also, as the forest rebounds or changes, the species that can live here might also change. Some of the populations will thrive, but others might not make it. And there's one more concern. It's best explained if we go back to here. This machine has a specific function. If we take out a part of this machine, that roll shuts down and the machine can't fulfill its function to wash cars. Unlike that machine, ecosystems perform many functions. They're a source of jobs and recreation. Plus, we rely on them for clean air and clean water. The lodgepole pines have played a part in all of those functions, even if other trees slowly replace them. We don't know if the forest will be able to fulfill its old functions as well as it once did. That's why our investigation today is so important. You've learned to see ecosystems as dynamic machines, where energy and matter churn in an ongoing cycle. Now that you know how this forest works, you can come up with solutions to help it thrive and sustain us. Thanks for your work. Please join us for the next research quest.
Okay, great. I'm going to go ahead and share with you some of my explanation that I wrote up. So my explanation, I wrote, the producers changed dramatically with the loss of the lodgepole pine trees. We've predicted that new species might even be introduced. We saw less changes in consumers overall, but still saw significant changes with primary and secondary organisms and consumers. It seems that populations would shift, some being a little bit bigger, some being a little bit smaller, and a few organisms that relied on lodgepole pine trees could disappear completely. We observed no changes on the tertiary consumer level. We also observed that some changes to decomposers could occur, but overall, most decomposer populations would stay the same. Okay, so it's a complicated picture when we think about the impacts. Now here on my research assistant notebook, page 4, I want you to go ahead and spend the next 5 minutes or so thinking about what story you would like to write here. My first thoughts might be a story about the mountain pine beetles. So I could think about a day in the life of the mountain pine beetle as the ecosystem continues to change. And I might write that short story comic strip here, or you can just do it on a separate piece of paper. But I'm going to give you a little bit of time to be working on that step. And then we'll finish today by looking at some of the extension activities. All right, so I'm going to give you some time to go ahead and work on page 4 of your research assistant notebook. All right, so I'm just going to quickly share the extension activities if you're interested in doing the extension activities. I'm going to open that up. It says explore extension activities. If you want to keep going, you can think about Schoolyard Hero. So either you're on your own or with a group, analyze an ecosystem in your community to see which organisms make up that system and what their relationships are. Okay, you can also create an energy model to show how energy transfers in the system. Or then it says that you could also show how you can create more energy for your ecosystem. This could be increasing producers, for example, planting more trees that are natural to your selected ecosystem. All right, I think that's a great extension activity if you want to continue the learning during our study hall time. You can work on this idea. So choose an ecosystem near you. Be thinking about who are the organisms, what is their role, what trophic level are they on, what are the relationships between those living things. All right, and then with that, I'm going to go ahead and share the feedback form. If you would like to receive the certificate for completing today's class, you can go ahead and visit the feedback form right here. Also, I just want to quickly mention at 11 a.m. we are going to be meeting with Christy Bills. She's the Entomology and Malacology Collections Manager. We're excited to be chatting with her. So please stick around or come back at 11 a.m. and we are going to have a live conversation with Christy Bills. All right, here's the feedback form. Of course, I'm going to continue to be available. We're not getting many questions, so I'm guessing that most of our students out there are good to wrap up things on their own. If you do have questions, you of course can submit those between now and 11 a.m. and we will be sure to respond to you. All right, thank you again for joining us today.
All right, friends. Good afternoon or morning still, everybody. Hello, friends and scientists. My name is Aiden, and I am an educator at the Natural History Museum of Utah. This week, I am leading our question and answer session with one of my favorite scientists I've probably ever met. If you'd like to ask a question to any of our scientists, please go ahead and press the Ask a Question button underneath the video so we can hear what you have to say. Don't be shy. We are speaking with Christy Bills. And let's see. We're speaking with Christy Bills today, and she is the Natural History Museum of Utah's collection manager for entomology and malacology. And she has been in charge of this collection that we have that dates back all the way to the 1890s. And one of the big projects that I know Christy's been working on has been digitizing our collection, our hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of specimens digitized for our online collections. We're going to today be learning about her job, and how insects benefit our ecosystems. Good morning, Christy. How are you?
I'm great. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Super. Great.
Excellent. We have a lot of questions. Pardon me if I look up, because that's where all my questions are hanging out.
I want to talk to you all day. This sounds great.
Excellent. You are, though, for real, one of my favorite scientists.
Thanks.
So first things first, what do you do at the museum?
So I manage the insect collection, which means I'm in charge of making sure that the insects that are dead, that have been collected by researchers for generations, are well taken care of, that they're accessible to the public and to researchers, but they're also kept very safe. And then I also help with providing specimens for outreach and for exhibits and helping educational efforts. And it's like the most fun, coolest job ever.
It super sounds like the best job. I mean, I think you're the best. So in case people don't know, because entomology and malacology are both really big words, can you break some of those down for a lot of our middle schoolers tuning in?
Yeah, for sure. So entomology technically is the study of insects. So that's things with 6 legs, usually 2 wings, well, 4 wings, 2 on each side. Usually things with antenna, but we often lump spiders in there, even though they're arachnids. But malacology is the study of mollusks, so snails, slugs, things like that. So I also manage our shell collection, things with shells. So that's not my preferred area of study, but I take care of the collection, make sure it's in order, available for researchers in best practice cabinets, stored safely, orderly, like being a librarian of natural history objects.
That's very cool. Librarians are also really great.
Yeah.
Do you know how many specimens the museum has, either of entomology or malacology?
Yeah, so we have approximately 350,000 insect specimens, and we have approximately, I would say, about 60,000 malacology specimens. We have a smaller insect collection. That's not giant by any standard, but I'm a big fan of small insect collections because really, really large ones are incomprehensible to the human. Like they're not able to be databased or managed as precisely. So I kind of like having a smaller collection. I know where everything is, and I'm able to database everything. Eventually, it hasn't all been databased, but one day we'll have it there.
It sounds like a lot of bugs to me.
It is.
Do you have a favorite? I gotta ask, do you have a favorite insect in the entomology collection? And do you have a favorite insect in general?
No way. Every day it changes. So I can say what some of my favorite things about the collection are. So what I love about it is that, what I love about entomology is that I'm always surprised. So I've been doing this for about 25 years. And even though I read about bugs, watch films about bugs, meet researchers about bugs, I still find things that just completely blow my mind, that just are like, wait, what? We had rules. Those don't follow any rules. That's shocking. That's amazing. It's exciting all the time. So that's what I think is so fun about entomology. And then in the collection, what I love is the link to history, the link to geography, the link to people, the stories behind each specimen. So each specimen is like a tiny library book of data about the ecology in a place and time. So something might have been collected, what's today's date? 4/14/1920 or 2020, right? So a specimen might have been collected like on 4/14/1938. What were the people doing at the time? Were they out on a picnic? Were they actually meaning to collect specimens at that time? What were they wearing? What was their lives like in 1938? What were those people, what were they doing, you know? So I love that link to the history of place, the history of people, not to mention just the data that we can get from that specimen, the pollen grains on the specimen, the pollution that we can learn about what the environment was like at that time. So I love every specimen for the stories.
Students ask me very frequently what my favorite animal is, and I always just tell them it's whatever animal I thought of last. But we have a question from Sequoia from California. Speaking of the collection and people going out and collecting,
yeah,
how do you even collect insects?
There's so many different ways. So if you go to your nearest windowsill in your place of living, you might find a dead fly. That fly might be really interesting. You might take some time with it and look at it very, very closely. You might take some time to mount it. You might put a little data card with it. That fly might be your specimen. So you might go outside, lift a rock. You might find some specimens. You might wait at a light at night. You might create special traps. You might design a survey. You might design a study. And so that might be, so most researchers would do things very specifically. You don't just bumble across something and collect it and say, I got something. You design a study very specifically because you're trying to answer a question about a place or about a particular bug or about a biome. So use special trapping methods, which are, the cool thing about entomology is most of the trapping methods aren't super sophisticated. They're about the same as they've been for the last few decades. And you can often build them yourself, even if you're kind of a kid. So that's kind of fun and nice.
Well, that brings me to an excellent question. In our explorations we've been doing with Tracy, we talked a little bit about pitfall traps. Have you ever used a pitfall trap? And can like anyone make them? Are they hard, or what's the deal with pitfall traps?
No, they're super easy. So I was ready for this question and I brought show and tell. So you'll need this very high-tech piece of equipment. This is an empty yogurt container, and this is about the right mouth size and the right depth. So if you dug a hole in the ground and it was the soil came to the mouth of this, things that bumbled across would fall in, and certain spiders and beetles and crickets would not be able to climb out. So sometimes you create a roof over this, like a square of wood with long nails that just kind of sits atop this, so it doesn't fill up with leaves or rain. And so things just crawl along the ground, fall in, and that's a pitfall trap. Super high tech. See this container I bought from the science store.
Yeah, that seems pretty easy peasy.
Yeah.
Let's see. We have a couple other questions. Well, frankly, I'm not gonna lie, we have a lot of other questions.
Let's do this all day.
I wish we could. Jennifer from Miami asks, why are some insects very colorful and other insects just brown or very plain?
That question is actually really interesting and actually very complex. So some things are colorful to blend in with colorful habitats, but usually they're colorful to warn things not to eat them. So red and orange usually say, I taste bad. So ladybugs taste bad. Velvet ants are bright colored and they walk along in the desert and are very conspicuous, and they're super bad to approach and get eaten by or stung or to eat, or they can sting you. So most things have bright colors to be warned.
That's a good adaptation. I know some of our middle schoolers might know, but an adaptation is something about the way an animal looks or behaves that helps it get its survival needs, and camouflage or warding off predators with your color is a great way to help with that.
Yeah. I have to add one of the things too.
Oh, sure.
Sometimes they're bright colored to find mates and for sexual selection, which is a term that's used for choosing the best mate, just to simplify it. So a very brightly colored male might be flashy so that a female will say, you seem like you have good fitness. I'm going to choose you to mate with.
So some animals like butterflies, I think of the monarch butterfly as one that is brightly colored, tastes, I've never eaten a monarch butterfly, but I would imagine they taste bad after eating all that milkweed.
Yeah.
Is there are there other butterflies that pretend to be bad tasting butterflies?
Yes. Yeah, so that's actually a common thing in entomology where some things don't taste bad, but they try and look like other things that taste bad. But sometimes two things will both taste bad and they'll try and look like each other to just double their messaging power.
Oh, it's interesting to think of bugs having messaging power.
Good marketing.
So there's there's a question about some of our local bugs here in Utah. It's starting to warm up. I guess we're starting to see more and more bugs come on out.
Yay!
Yay! And so there's a question about these firebugs. There's a scientific name here, which I think I'm going to get wrong.
Do you want me to say it?
Go for it.
Pyrocorus apterus.
Pyrocorus apterus. And so I'm under the impression that it's pretty new to Utah, somewhere in the last 12 years, but how did we know it was new and where did it originally come from?
Okay, so it was super exciting when we first discovered that they were here in Utah because they were brought to my attention and I thought, well, I'll just go look in the insect collection and find some that match and we'll know how long they've been here or whatever. And I didn't find any in our insect collection. So scientists, the cool thing about science is working together, collaboration and communication with people around the whole globe. So I contacted other insect collections in Utah and I said, I've got this insect. Do you have any in your collections? And I was told, no, we don't have them because they don't live here. So I worked with other people, which is super important in natural history science. And so I said, what do you think we should do? And we decided to contact a researcher at the Smithsonian who's sort of at the federal level, like, hey, we should alert you that these are here. And he said, that's a huge surprise. I'm going to arrange a trip to Utah to come take a look at them. So he and I drove around a suburb and collected them out of gutters, which was super funny because here we are like scraping around in gutters in a neighborhood and people don't know that he's a fancy Smithsonian researcher who's flown all the way to Salt Lake just to collect bugs out of gutters. You know what I mean? So he had written the whole book on the order, which is it's a big deal. So he said he's going to have to change his book. They're originally from Europe. How did they get to Utah? Who knows? Who knows? But they've been extremely successful. So they're called a firebug. They look almost exactly like a box elder bug in size and in behavior, but they don't fly. So that's the name apterus, means no wings.
Oh, okay.
So they just crawl. They don't bite. People can pick them up. They're red with two black circles, different than a box elder bug. They belong to a family of bugs called cotton stainers. So they can be pests of cotton crops. And so I think that's somewhat concerning, but not concerning enough that the Department of Agriculture freaked out or anything. So the interesting thing about them, I think for public participation, is that using the iNaturalist app and a big campaign that we've done at the museum is we've asked people, whenever you see them, take pictures and put them on iNaturalist. So we've been kind of able to track the extending range. So a range shows you where bugs live, where things live, not just bugs, but birds or plants, wherever. So we've been able to track the range extension growing. So it's been amazing in real time to watch it. And now there's populations in Canada and Mexico that we've watched emerge using this completely available, free, easily approachable science tool.
That's excellent. I know the Natural History Museum of Utah is putting together a lot of resources that particularly have to do with iNaturalist. So keep your eyes peeled for that stuff because I know there's a lot of projects that you have done with iNaturalist, and we can talk a little bit more about the fireflies in just a second. But we have a question from Justice from North Carolina who asks, do you sell the insects that you collect or do you keep them forever?
We never sell insects. So Not that I think it's wrong, because there are businesses in the world that do that, and they're a renewable resource. And if it's done very ethically and carefully, so you don't decimate a population, I don't think it's wrong. But at the museum, our purpose is to hold things in perpetuity for research and for the public. So we never sell our specimens. We keep them forever, and that's a big responsibility.
It is. So I wanted to circle back to the iNaturalist stuff just briefly, so you could tell us a little bit about the Natural History Museum and your work with our surprising fireflies.
Oh, I don't use iNaturalist for Firefly Project.
My
Yeah.
mistake.
Yeah, no. So that is what's known as a community science project. And there's a lot of community science projects in the world. So it allows anyone who's interested in any different kind of science to participate. So if you've always wanted to be an astronomer or a marine biologist or know more about pet science or anything, there are ways to be involved. But the way I use the Firefly Project is we have our own web portal. iNaturalist just wouldn't lend itself well to the Firefly Project because it's at night and it's hard to take pictures of bugs at night. Fireflies are so hard to photograph because as soon as you shine a light on them, they quit flashing. So we use our particular web portal that we built for the museum's website. If you type Fireflies, Utah, our site comes up. So it's really easy. And we've been able to, in 5 years, completely map, I think, almost all the populations of fireflies in the entire state. So before we started the project, we knew about maybe 3 or 4 populations, and now we know of them existing in at least 26 of the 29 counties of our state. And we've started to spread the project to adjacent states. So we're looking for them. We found them now in Nevada, Idaho, Colorado, and Wyoming. We're super excited about learning more about the fireflies throughout the entire Western Intermountain West, where people didn't know we had them. And the reason this is super exciting to me is it makes people understand wetlands as a really important biome. And also that if this exciting, charismatic insect has been in our backyard all this time and 99% of the residents of our state don't know about it, what else is out there, you know?
The thrill of discovery.
Yeah.
So friends, if you have questions that you would like to ask Christy, please don't be shy, chime in with the Ask a Question button under the video. We would love to hear from you. I know that there are a lot of different kinds of bugs and they all fill different roles in the ecosystems. Do you have like a favorite role that insects fill in our Utah ecosystem? I know that's asking for another favorite thing, but
no. I mean, I think a lot of people hone in on pollinators and are super excited about pollinators and bees. And yeah, that's super great. And Utah is a hotspot for bees. We have more bees in Utah than in the entire eastern United States because bees are more numerous in desert biomes. So that's super cool. So yeah, pollination, super great, super popular. But I also like things that bugs break down dead things. So if dead things are laying around, you know, you get larger animals that pick off the big parts, but then, you know, you've got to get some beetles in there to like finish cleaning up the mess. Otherwise the world will be full of piles of dead things. You know, even wasps, you know, will chew off little bits and keep things clean around us. Another cool thing that bugs do is in places with hard soil, insects burrow down into the soil, including bees and ants, and aerate the soil and make it so plants can grow, you know, so they're really helpful for seed, for aeration of soil, but also seed dispersal. So they'll pick up seeds of plants and then disperse them around so they help plants grow. So many things. I could go on and on.
There's so many things. Lately, I have been a advocate for wasps because I think they get a bad rap.
Yes.
I have recently been looking at very close pictures of wasps and they're fascinating.
Yeah, the teeny tiny ones are super weird and interesting.
I was looking at pictures of also orchid bees. They're so teeny tiny. Oh my goodness, but they're beautiful. They're so shiny and gorgeous. We have even more questions and let's see. Let me find some really good ones. Let's see. Oh gosh, there's so many. It's a little overwhelming. Oh, here's a really good one. So now that it's spring, bugs are coming out.
Mm-hmm.
What is a common bug that students might see around Utah, or is there something that they can do to help bugs in their own backyards?
I'm not going to tell people what kind of bugs they're going to see. Go outside and find them yourself.
Go
No.
find your own bugs.
Go find your own bugs. That's the whole point. Go outside. Go outside. I'm going to tell you how to find bugs. That's more important.
Oh, that'd be very good.
Sit under lights at night. Turn over logs. Lift up rocks. Sit still. Just sit in a place and sit still. Things will come by. Look under bark. Let's see, another good place. Look in flowers, very teeny tiny flowers. Look in grass, look in weedy places. Turf grass that's like in the park is terrible for living things. So that's, it's hard for children to understand that, but like the grass that's grown, that's really green, is not natural, and there's not a lot of things that live in it. So go to weedy places, go to places that are neglected, or gardens that are really well kept that have a lot of diversity of plants. That's what bugs love. They need food, they need pollen, they need nectar. They don't need grass. It's kind of dead for them. So go to wild places and see what you find. You'll look for worms, snails, slugs, millipedes, centipedes, flying things, but there's a lot of things that are very tiny that you just have to spend the time and the patience. Maybe put a piece of fruit out and let it rot, see what comes to it. Yeah, so find what you can find, and then take pictures or draw pictures or put it in a jar and take the time to look at it. But instead of I always tell people you can't shop the wild, and you can't. So go outside and tell me what you find. There's probably things you'll find that would surprise me. That happens all the time.
Oh, I'm sure. Let's see. We have a question from Amani from Utah who asks, what is older, dinosaurs or bugs, or plants or bugs?
Oh man, that's super hard. I want to say bugs. And plants and bugs kind of evolved at the same time. I mean, it's a complex question, but bugs are much older than you think. Bugs are older than most mountains you see.
That's pretty surprising. I'm gonna dovetail with Amani's question, which is, we were just talking about like pollinators and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Were there bees during prehistoric times at the same time that there were flowers? Like, did they come about at the same time, or did one come first and then the other?
These are great questions, and I don't have great answers. So Amani's got great questions, and I don't specialize in fossil entomology. So that's a whole entirely different field of people who research when insects developed, when different groups diverged from each other, how insects and plants affected each other and affected the evolution of each other. So those are super great questions. And if I had like studied up a little bit on that, I might have been able to answer it better. But one fact I really love is that bees are older than the Wasatch Mountains. And here I'm pointing to the Wasatch Mountains where you like, you know where they are. But those are great questions. And they're, you know, I want to say that the Los Angeles County Museum has an online portal of fossil insects. And we're still answering questions about those all the time. It's not like there's any set answers. Every once in a while, you know, somebody will find a new fossil and we'll say, oh, this upturns what we thought. So it's an evolving understanding, and I don't have good answers on it for you.
That's all good. I have, oh gosh, there's a whole bunch of questions coming in. Sarah from Salt Lake wants to know, oh my gosh, it's another favorite question. What is your favorite place in Utah to look for insects? Mountain, deserts, parks, wetlands, maybe your backyard? What's your favorite place?
Deserts. And because I love desert insects so much, I love Jerusalem crickets. I love tarantulas. I love velvet ants so much. So right along the foothills around the museum, it's really dry, and we get just the coolest things. We get these, they're called sun spiders or sulfugids, and they're really cool and weird. So I'm a big fan of desert things, and we also have that huge diversity of bees. Wetlands are also so fun and weird. Wherever it's murky and wet, you get a whole different group of bugs. I don't like parks so much because they're usually sprayed and they usually just don't have as much diversity of plants. You never know though, you might stumble across something weird. One time I was in Memory Grove, which is in urban Salt Lake, but kind of what we call the WUI interface, the wild urban interface. And I'd been in Salt Lake a long time. And I turned around, I was working with a group of kids, and a little girl handed me in the palm of her hand a slug that was like 4 or 5 inches long. Yeah, I'd never ever seen one. Totally blown away. And then I started doing research, and it's the species of slug that lives here in Utah. So you're always surprised where you find things.
That's excellent. I totally understand what it's like to have a kid hold something out to you and you're like, whoa, that's very cool what you picked out.
Yeah.
Sequoia from California also asks, oh, here's a good one. Why do pests, it sounds like she's got a problem with little black flies on her plants. But she says, why do pests gather in large groups?
I'm thinking about people in restaurants, or people gathering in groups to find mates. And that's where maybe you just had an egg hatch. So also just because that's how they find mates. So, same reason people do.
And then finally, before we run out of time, we have a lot.
What? I have so many more things to tell you.
If somebody was interested, I know a lot of our viewers are middle schoolers and high schoolers. If they were interested in entomology, what opportunities are there for that age range, but also what kind of jobs are there available if you're into entomology?
There's a ton of jobs. Entomologists are needed in agriculture, medicine, forensics, natural history, working in ecology, working in greenhouses. There's just so much work. It's adjacent to many fields. So I highly recommend, if you love entomology, don't stop. And also, if you want to have another kind of job, you can do entomology on the side, and it's just makes your life richer. If you're interested in entomology and you're a young person, or you're just interested in entomology, these are my suggestions. You can volunteer to either work on a project online to support research, or you can become an amateur entomologist, connect with a researcher in your area. They love to have people working with them. So it's not hard to participate in entomological research. If you're a young person and you're just kind of working on your own, you can get any kind of notebook, and I'm looking around my desk, any kind of notebook, make it your dedicated natural history notebook. Yeah, it doesn't have to be fancy. It can be a really inexpensive one. Make observations every day about natural history. All it needs is a date and your observations. Doesn't have to be perfect. You can sketch. You can even just look at a picture online and sketch a bug that you're interested in, and just try and make it as detailed as possible, because then you're making observations and learning about the shape of the bug, the different details of it, and you're learning so much. You can watch YouTube videos online, not the dumb ones, but you know what I mean. There's a lot of great ones where you can learn so much. Go outside, spend time outside, and keep your notebook up to date. Every day, try and make a natural history observation, and you're well on your way. Also, look for volunteer opportunities at museums and zoos, and you'll be starting to build your career path.
Yeah, I like the idea of every day trying to see a bug.
Yeah, or a cloud.
Isn't that hard to try to see a bug?
Yeah, or a cloud or a tree or any kind of natural history observation. If you start keeping a journal of natural history observations as a young person, or you don't even have to be a young person, it's a really good way to fine tune your eye for these things.
Excellent. Well, we are just about out of time. I wanted to say thank you so much, Christy, for joining us. And thanks all of our scientists and friends at home for all of your wonderful questions. Scientists, we're going to be putting up our feedback form here in just a second. Scientists, teachers, students, parents, please leave us your feedback. Let us know what you think of Research Quest. Your feedback will help us build our digital programs so that we may serve you better. Join us tomorrow, because we have a whole nother lesson and interview with another totally rad scientist. I believe our next class is going to be what is the future of a forest under attack? At part 1 at 9:30 Mountain Daylight Time tomorrow. And thank you again, Christy. And we'll see you all tomorrow, scientists. Bye, friends.
Thanks, Aiden.
Bye.